Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Apocalypse Volcano. While you may not think it because of all the ice and snow, Alaska is home to some of the most volatile volcanoes on the planet. Scientists recently revealed what they believe to be a supervolcano hiding underneath the Aleutian Islands in southwestern Alaska. What's really amazing is that the supervolcano was only discovered because of a bizarre game of connect the dots. Scientists with the U.S. Geological Survey's Alaska Volcano Observatory were looking at 6 existing volcanoes when they realized each one might be part of a larger supervolcano. All 4 existing volcanoes, which scientists already knew about, are connected inside a massive crater. The crater was likely created when the original volcano of massive proportions exploded. John Power, one of the geophysicists doing the investigation, said the volcano would likely disrupt civilizations across the globe if it erupted at any time in human history. The discovery hasn't been 100% verified yet, but it appears as though we may have a giant volcano right below the ice of Alaska. Scientists think the caldera of the supervolcano, meaning its mouth, is nearly 15 miles across. It doesn't look like it's about to explode at any point in the near future, but it's definitely something that could happen. And if it were to happen, the resulting fallout could wipe out human civilization. Number 9. Alaska's Underground Pyramid. There is supposedly a huge pyramid hiding in Alaska. This mysterious pyramid is said to be the biggest in the world, and yet nobody has ever heard of it. But apparently in May of 1992, China was conducting an underground nuclear test in their northern desert. Scientists using seismographic equipment to analyze the Earth's crust picked up a strange reading from Alaska, which isn't all that far from eastern China. There seemed to be a pyramid-shaped structure somewhere near Mount McKinley, buried deep in the Earth. This strange and astounding monument became known as the Black Pyramid. However, most mainstream scientists don't think it exists at all. Unfortunately, there is no verifiable proof that Chinese scientists ever found a pyramid hiding in Alaska. We have the story of how it supposedly happened, but no concrete evidence to support the claim. Furthermore, we have people who believe the U.S. government knew about the pyramid long before China ever found it, and went through enormous lengths to conceal it. And some locals near Mount McKinley have made reports of bizarre electrical energy emanating from underneath the ground. If these tales are to be believed, somewhere underneath Alaska is an ancient pyramid emitting intense energy, and it's been completely covered up by the government. Any people who live in Alaska out there? Or have you ever been? Let me know in the comments. I'm planning a trip in September. And now for number 8. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Paige Nichols and Eric Sean Wolf. Thanks so much for watching and supporting Origins Explained. We wouldn't be here without you. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the family. Number 8. The Alaskan Hairy Man. There are creatures that supposedly live in southwestern Alaska called urayuli. Some think there are entire families of these things that exist in the frigid continent, while others believe there might just be one like the legendary Sasquatch. According to the myth, the creature or creatures are very similar to Bigfoot. They are ape-like and stand about 10 feet tall from head to toe. They are also covered in shaggy fur and have glowing eyes that can be seen on the darkest of nights. They are said to emit sharp cries like the call of a loon, and their arms are so long that their knuckles drag on the ground when they walk. They allegedly live all throughout the wild area of Lake Iliamna, and unlike most mythical beasts, the urayuli are peaceful creatures. Well, that's good. Surprisingly, the urayuli aren't the only hairy monsters that are supposedly hiding in the wilderness of Alaska. There is also a creature that's been nicknamed the Alaskan Hairy Man. The big difference between the urayuli and the hairy man is that the latter is described as being aggressive. While the urayuli try to avoid human contact and generally keep to themselves, the hairy man isn't afraid to attack. And while both of these cryptids are about as likely to exist as Bigfoot, there have been some shocking sightings in the past. In April 2013, a woman working in Napakiak village supposedly saw the hairy man while gazing out her window in the early afternoon. The worker saw something extremely tall walk across the bluff on the other side of the village, striding on two legs and covered in dark fur. The eyewitness said that she'd seen people walking on the block before, and that this definitely wasn't a human. The creature then moved to the lower part of the bluff and vanished. Afterward, the woman gathered a group of 8 people, hoping the monster would return. And sure enough, it moved back within view and shuffled around on the bluff for a minute before disappearing once again. Amazingly, everybody in the group claimed to see it. There were even kids playing outside who saw the giant hairy creature and went screaming in the other direction. We'll most likely never be able to verify that what was seen that day was indeed the Alaskan version of Bigfoot, but there's always a chance. Number 7. The Lost Fortress. Archaeologists recently found the remains of a lost 19th century fort in Alaska. This ancient fortress, that was nearly forgotten about, was the place of an epic battle between indigenous Alaskan clans and ruthless Russian soldiers. This fort was a stronghold for the indigenous group known as the Tlingit. It was the last stronghold for Native Alaskans before Russia pushed past them with brutality and colonized Alaska in 1804. This was the beginning of 60 years of occupation and subjugation, a rather dark time in the continent's history. The terrible truth is that Russia invaded Alaska in 1799. For 3 years, the Tlingit fought back against the colonizers. They fortified territory, built wooden fortresses, and desperately waged war. Their most impressive fortress was called Shizgi Nu, and although it held strong for a short while, it didn't last very long. Russians had the numbers and the technology, and they destroyed the fortress and all those who lived inside it. For the past 200 years, Shizgi Nu has been nothing but a story in history books. But finally, a team of specialists working with Cornell University in Ithaca and Shenandoah National Park in Virginia have made some headway. They used ground-penetrating radar to identify the structural remains of the destroyed fortress. They now have its exact location, although there really isn't anything left of it. Nothing but old timbers buried deep within the ground, and the ugly stain of Russia's colonialism remains. Still, the ruin is one of the most important cultural symbols of the Tlingit resistance. Number 6. The Alaskan Vortex. Alaska is twice the size of Texas and home to 17 out of the 20 highest peaks in the United States. Over half of the federally designated wilderness in the USA also happens to be in Alaska. It's really difficult to express just how large the icy continent is. So it may come as no surprise that there is a rather large stretch of wilderness in which people are continuously vanishing without a trace. There have been an estimated 16,000 disappearances inside the Alaska Triangle, the most famous of which is the disappearance of Congressman Hale Bogg in 1972. Bogg vanished in a private aircraft while flying over the Alaska Triangle and was never seen again. They looked for him for 39 days before finally giving up, and to this day, his plane has never been found. And that's only one example out of 16,000. We still don't know what causes all the disappearances in the Alaska Triangle. There are a lot of theories, though, including one about aliens. In 1986, the FAA released a report about unidentified flying objects. Japan Airlines Flight 1628 encountered 3 unexplainable flying objects in the sky. Some believe it's aliens who are kidnapping people from this area. Another theory is that the triangle is home to swirling energy vortexes that dramatically alter human behavior. Electronic readings have found anomalies with magnetic energies in this area. Compasses can supposedly stop functioning altogether or simply malfunction, typically resulting in people getting lost. Some volunteers who have helped search for the missing have even reported experiencing distortions and hallucinations, all because of the energy vortex. Number 5. World War II Battleship. A ship was destroyed off the coast of Alaska near the Aleutian Islands 75 years ago. It was the USS Abner Read, a vessel that was patrolling the waters during the height of World War II. On August 18, 1943, the patrol ship was likely hit by a Japanese mine. The Abner's stern was totally obliterated, but somehow the crew managed to keep water out of the main area. In the end, 2 Navy ships hauled the destroyer back to safety. Sam Cox from the Naval History and Heritage Command says the damage was catastrophic and that the ship should have sunk. Instead, it was fixed and went to fight more battles against the Japanese. It was finally sunk for real in November of 1944, but the ship's stern was never found. That is, until now. Scientists with the University of California, San Diego used multi-beam sonar to scan the ocean floor looking for the chunk of the destroyed ship. And amazingly, they found it. The team even captured video of the ship using a remotely controlled vehicle at 290 feet under the Bering Sea. The shipwreck, however, isn't in great shape. It's almost entirely rusted and covered in sea slime. But it's there, a lost piece of World War II hiding in the unassuming waters of Alaska. Number 4. The Eskimo Massacre Site. Archaeologists in Alaska recently discovered the remains of 28 villagers who were part of a brutal massacre 350 years ago. The most terrible part about the discovery is that up until now, the massacre was simply an old folk tale. It was a story from the local lore of the Eskimos, who are also called the Yupik. But now archaeologists have proof that the tragic tale is somewhat grounded in reality. Researchers with the University of Aberdeen excavated Agaligmut, an old village in Alaska that once belonged to the Eskimos. It was there that they found the remains of people who had been tied with grass rope and shoved face down in the ground before being executed. Many bodies had injuries that were likely caused by taking a spear to the back of the skull or by being pierced by an arrow. Dr. Rick Knecht said most of the human remains were women, children, and elderly people. There was only a single man found within the group who was of fighting age. Based on the evidence, researchers believe the villagers were tortured and murdered. Then they had their village burned down and erased from history. It looks like the village was attacked by enemies when all of the young men or warriors were away. The archaeological proof isn't far off from the legend. According to the tale, the massacre happened because of a dart game that went wrong. A pair of indigenous tribes were already having a conflict, but that disagreement was pushed over the edge by a botched dart game when one of the participants took a dart to the eyeball. This resulted in the massacre, which occurred sometime around 1652. Number 3. Mind control mayhem. There could be a laboratory in Alaska where the government is trying to figure out how to master mind control. It's called the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP for short. The facility is home to one of the most powerful transmitter arrays in the world. The official story is that the facility is used for studying the upper reaches of our atmosphere. Scientists use highly advanced instruments to detect things going on way above our heads, literally. But not everybody is so easily convinced. Seeing as the facility is nestled in the remote mountains over 250 miles from Fairbanks, it seems like the perfect place for a secret government lab. It's been blamed for causing earthquakes, for destroying the space shuttle Columbia, and much more. Conspiracy theorists say HAARP is experimenting with controlling the weather, turning the weather into a weapon of war. It's also believed that those involved in HAARP are dabbling in mind control. It doesn't help the facility's reputation that it was built as part of a joint project with DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. After all, what would DARPA be interested in studying the upper atmosphere for when their primary objective is to create weapons? Probably because they're creating weapons for outer space. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Number 2. Alien hysteria. A cloud was recently spotted over Alaska, and it turned into a massive controversy. The cloud was so strange and suspicious that it spawned a police investigation and lit up social media. The cloud, which looked a lot like a narrow column of smoke, was seen floating over Lazy Mountain on a chilly day in April 2022. Just minutes after the cloud was spotted, people began speculating over what it was. Some believed it was the smoke debris from a hypersonic missile test, while others said it was aliens. It's not every day a cloud gets this much attention. The issue was that the cloud looked solid and that it was shaped like a long cylinder with what appeared to be a metallic claw at its end. In all honesty, it resembled an alien spaceship trying to disguise itself as a cloud. Due to the hysteria surrounding the strange cloud, local police got involved. Alaska state troopers told the public that what they saw was nothing but an airplane's contrail combined with the light of a brilliant sunrise. The contrail mixed with the rising sun caused it to appear far more menacing than it really was. But this explanation did little to ease the minds of locals. The Alaska state troopers were eventually forced to send out a helicopter crew to investigate the cloud after receiving numerous calls from the public. They never found any alien bodies or spaceships, but that doesn't necessarily mean the cloud was natural. The conclusion reached by the authorities could have just been a big cover-up. But unfortunately, we may never know for sure. Number 1. King Bear. In Inuit mythology, there is a story about a creature called King Bear, or Tiriarnak in the local language. Hunters from Canada's Western Arctic, even today, tell stories about a terrifying bear unlike any other. Now, keep in mind these hunters have been tracking down and killing polar bears for centuries, so they've seen every kind of Arctic bear imaginable. But the king bear is bigger and scarier than all the rest. It's enormous, and it supposedly moves like a demon. And it's so ferocious that it can kill an entire hunting party. Up until very recently, most anthropologists simply thought this was a story. But now archaeologists have found a skull in Alaska that could prove the king bear was a real beast. Researchers found what they have described as an elongated polar bear skull. It was uncovered way out in the Alaskan wilderness. The leader of the excavation, Jensen, says it's one of the biggest polar bear skulls ever found. But it could also be from a different species, since it's a little more slender and has uncommon structural features. The skull was dated to be about 1,200 years old. All these clues suggest the king bear was a real rampaging animal that terrified the Inuit. Either it's still out there in the Alaskan wild somewhere, or it went extinct in the past couple centuries. Thanks for watching! What's your favorite myth or legendary beast from Alaska? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time! Bye!